how do I get away from, like, no, healthy boundaries, meaning, like, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. Like, you don't have to cut people off. You need to place them in a healthy place. Growth gang, welcome back to another growth talk. Today we're going to talk about relationship building. It could be looked at as, you know what I mean, when I posted this topic in my socials, like in my stories to get the Q&A questions, like I definitely had a lot of people being like, well, what's the difference between relationship building and networking? Well, like, networking is more like business-based ambition, and relationship building can be quite different. Like, if we're talking about building relationships, like there's a multitude of different purposes, when I think networking is definitely more in the box of like business, like building out, you know what I mean, your business ambitions and aspirations. As where relationship building could be creating a better relationship with your kids, or building on, you know what I mean, working on the relationship with your mother, or, you know what I mean, like, it could be a multitude of things. Relationship building could be, especially when you talk about, like, intrapersonal skills when it comes to relationship building. Like, it could literally just be, like, finding forgiveness for a loved one, to create that space, you know what I mean, for a better relationship. Like, there's a lot of different things, right? Like, it depends on how you package it. So, like, I felt like the topic of relationship building is definitely not so much in the realm of networking. Like, I believe I've covered a growth talk on networking. I am revisiting certain topics because, like, I definitely evolve on a topic and learn more and can share more as time progresses, right? So, and I may even find that some of the things that I said in a growth talk before may be outdated, or I don't necessarily feel that way anymore. So I will be covering topics, you know what I mean, again, but I believe I've already done networking. But today we're talking about relationship building in the sense of kind of like the intrapersonal skills around it. So I'm gonna jump right into the Q&A because, like, another 20-minute video if I don't. So the first question is, how can I improve my communication skills in my relationships? One way would be, like, honesty with yourself. Like, you need to be honest with yourself and your expectations, like your rules of engagement, you know what I mean, and standards with others in order to properly communicate them. So, like, it's, you know what I mean, two different things. But, like, I believe it starts with the honesty and the awareness of your standards. Like, rather than just, like, silently having a standard and then somebody doesn't meet it and you just X them out. Like, you have to properly communicate your standards. And I believe that starts with, like, an internal honesty. Like, if you're honest with yourself about your standards, like your rules of engagement, like the rules of which others need to play by in order to engage with you, then, you know what I mean, it's going to be so much easier to communicate. And, like, the communication skills is, I believe, just like that effective honesty with yourself. Like, if you can have that introspective honesty and awareness of your standards, and then, like, have more of a front-loaded conversation with people about them, opposed to just trying to course correct them every time they deviate from your standard. Like, I believe it starts with honesty. That is definitely one way to you know what I mean, today, that you could really start to improve your communication skills in your relationships. Number two, what are some ways to build trust and strengthen relationships? You have to keep your word. Like, I've done videos on self-confidence in the past, and how, like, you know what I mean, how, like, that self-confidence is trust. So it's the same thing. Like, in order to build trust and strengthen a relationship, like, you have to show up when you say you're going to show up. Like, you have to keep your word. Like, that's where that trust comes from, is the consistency of keeping your word. Like, if you make a promise or agree to an obligation with an external factor, like, you need to maintain, like, you have to be there, or you're breaking trust with that person. And like, they may not voice it in the moments, but psychologically, even unconsciously, like, you're breaking trust with those people. Like, it's all about how you show up. You know what I mean? Like, if, like, people trust what they can count on. So if they can count on you, then they will begin to trust you. So that's how, you know what I mean? Like, that's how you strengthen trust in your relationships. Number 3, how do I navigate conflicts and disagreements in relationships? With good communication skills. Like, I find, like, especially with like a significant other, like, if like, I can only hope that, you know what I mean, like, you have a good significant other where these type of front-loaded intentions are possible in your relationship, but for some, I understand that they're just not. And like, I feel really sorry for the people who are more intentional people and trying to get in front of things and have that awareness around it and stuff, and then other people who are just on autopilot and having things happen to them. Like, oh, what a terrible relationship to be in. But anyway, sorry. So how do I navigate conflicts and disagreements in relationships? Like, you need to have systems, I think. Like, I'm not in a relationship right now, but like, I have been in some long-term relationships, and definitely, like, I have definitely grown a lot. But in the past, like, what really would have saved these conflicts and disagreements from being so detrimental in my past relationships would have been having systems to determine if we're right fighting or not. Because a lot of the time, like, when you're in a disagreement or a conflict with a loved one, a friend, a significant other, like, you don't even realize, like, how quickly you go into right fighting mode. And like, you may have actually even abandoned the point you're trying to prove just to be right. And that can be very dangerous in your relationships. Like, if you plan on maintaining relationships with somebody, especially like you know what I mean? Like a lover, like a significant other, like, oh man, like, you need to have systems. Like, I learned that from Tom Bilyeu. He said something, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh, me and Lisa arguing for an hour and a half, blah, 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 blah. And then about something very menial. I believe it was like tea or something like that. But then they one of them had the wherewithal to step back and create that awareness point to be like, is this even about the tea anymore? And then, so like, you just kind of need to make sure that like you have like those checks and balances, like systems in place in your relationships, like to make sure that like you guys aren't, you know what I mean, don't go off on a tangent in your conflicts and your disagreements, right fighting with each other. Like, you're inevitably going to have conflicts and disagreements. Like, fuck, I wouldn't want to be with somebody who never disagreed with me. Like, geez, like, what a weak person. Like, I don't want some friggin' mute around, you know what I mean? Like, everybody's got their own opinions and they're all unique to them. So like, there's inevitably always like going to be a conflict or two here and there, and that's through disagreement. So if you have checks and balances, like systems in place to make sure that like you haven't gone down the rabbit hole of right fighting, you know what I mean? So now you're just arguing for the sake of arguing. These can be healthy conflicts and disagreements because like they bring out a standard. Like if you're in a conflict or a disagreement, well, you've offended a standard of the person you're in a disagreement with, which then creates the awareness around the standard if they hadn't voiced it before. So like, it gives you that ability to course correct and to mitigate your approach around it. Number 4, what are some strategies for developing empathy and understanding for my people? That's a good question. And it's going to be I'm literally gonna have to read it again because there's a little bit to unpack there. What are some strategies for developing empathy and understanding for my people? So empathy, we should probably, you know what I mean, give a little description of empathy. Empathy is like your ability to place yourself in somebody else's shoes. Like, there's a very large lack of empathy in the world nowadays, and it is what it is, but like, it's literally being able to place yourself in somebody else's shoes. So like, you know what I mean? Like, it gives you that patience and that understanding. It's a different way of cultivating an approach to somebody if you have empathy around their situation and their circumstances. Like a certain, like, you know what I mean? Like, if you walk up on somebody who just got out of like a huge argument or is dealing with, like, you know what I mean, some friction in a bad situation, and like they, you know what I mean, they bark at you. Well, all it would take to not react to that in the moment is to be like, well, you know what I mean? That's where empathy comes in. Like, you can place yourself in their shoes. It's like, well, man, like, something must be wrong. Like, because, like, that reaction wasn't warranted. And, like, you know how that person ultimately feels about you. So that, you know what I mean? Like, those little moment-to-moment situations don't cause so much friction because of empathy. Like, you need to be able to place yourself in somebody else's shoes. That's empathy. So it's literally, it comes from like compassion and love. Like, you need to have like some compassion and love for somebody in order to really have empathy. Like, some people are better at it. It's actually something that like I had to cultivate in my latter years here. I definitely wasn't, you know what I mean, wasn't very great at holding empathy for others. I'm empathic, but that's two different things. What are some strategies for developing empathy? Like, it's the love and compassion. Like, if you don't have love and compassion for somebody, then like, why, you know what I mean, why would you ever find yourself trying to apply empathy and understanding for your people, right? So I believe that's it. So number 5, how do I draw healthy boundaries with loved ones? You just do it. Like, you just have to do it. Like, nobody wants to be put in a box. You know what I mean? Like, so you're almost better to not be outspoken about it. Like, you just do it. Like, you just instigate it. You know what I mean? Like, if somebody's draining your energy because like you get on a phone call with them every day, you know what I mean, for 20 minutes and get to gabbing, or like, you know what I mean, like your brother, your mom, whoever it is, but they naturally talk about like negative stuff, so it brings you down. Well, you know what I mean? Like, you might want to limit how much those conversations are happening, right? Like, especially when they're happening. Like, if somebody's calling you while you're at work and trying to just tell you a bunch of problems that like you have no way of directly solving, well, that's shit. You don't want to get stuck in that one. So like, you do have to draw healthy boundaries with your loved ones. And like, if you're asking how, just do. Like, you just have to do it. You don't tell them. You know what I mean? Like, if like you don't even cut people off. Like, I actually love that. Like, how do I? You know what I mean? Like, somebody might ask, like, oh, how do I get away from? Like, no, healthy boundaries. Meaning, like, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. Like, you don't have to cut people off. You need to place them in a healthy place. And that's going to be uncomfortable for them. So it's not a conversation that you have like, oh, I think I need to limit how much we talk. Like, that is going to offend somebody in ways that like, holy, like, so you don't really tell them. You just do it. Like, you just do it. You just become less available. You just don't answer during those times. And then, you know what I mean? Like, it'll inevitably wean off. Like, how do I draw healthy boundaries? Like, you just do it through intention. If somebody is, you you know what I mean, like inconveniencing you or whatever, like you need to draw that boundary. And it doesn't necessarily need to be in the form of telling them. It's something that you instigate. Like, you know what I mean? Like, fuck would you tell yo, you gotta stop calling me during the day, all this negative shit. Like, you don't do that. You just become less available during those hours. Like, if that relationship's important enough to you to continue it, you know what I mean, whatever, then, you know what I mean, then you have to have that healthy boundary. Like, you have to place it in a box. You gotta put that bitch in a box, straight up. And only open that box up when, you know what I mean, when it serves. Like, you definitely, like, can't just be a one-way street. Like, you know what I mean, like, you can't just never have things inconvenience you. But you do need to instigate healthy boundaries to make sure that, you know what I mean, you're not getting walked on. Because, like, it's a fine line, right, between having that empathy, that love, that compassion for a loved one, letting them vent, letting them whatever, you know what I mean? But, like, if that's going to negatively impact you, then you need to draw healthy boundaries around that. So I believe we definitely covered a lot of it. Lord knows how long we've been going for. My timer shut off on me. But that's it. You know what I mean? Like, those were some great questions. I hope I covered the points, and that anybody that asked the questions, that they were, you know what I mean, that they were answered in the realm and way that you were asking them. Sometimes a question can be misinterpreted. If that ever happens, you can always just feel free to DM me and just be like, actually, like, I kind of meant this, sorry. And, you know what I mean, I'll shoot you a little message about it. Like, I'm actually here to serve. And, like, when you DM me, it's me. Like, if you message me on Instagram, I am Coach Dash, you're getting me. This is, you know what I mean? I love this. I'm here to be of service. I'm not trying to automate all of this and pass the puck. Like, this genuinely fulfills me. So why would I, you know what I mean? Why would I try and walk away from it? Like, obviously at scale, you know what I mean, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. But right now, you know what I mean, July 5th, 2024, you can slide into my DMs and you are going to get me. I am Coach Dash on Instagram. You can always message me. But like I said, I hope I covered these, created some vantage points and new awareness around relationship building, and that you're being conscious about your relationships and that you're procuring them. Like, you need to evolve your relationships, right? Like, you need to build them. Like, one relationship that I could say personally, like, that I have been really, really, really putting work on building is my mom. Like, me and my, you know what I mean? Me and my mom have been through some stuff and whatever, but there isn't anybody in the world that I love more. Maybe my son, but my mom's my number one. Like, honestly, she really is. And due to, you know, friction and things that have happened in the past, won't get into too much because, like, I'm not trying to divulge my mom's business. You know what I mean? Like, I actually had, like, unconscious responses to her. Like, I would change when she came around. I would close up. I'd get angry, like, unconsciously. Therefore, I would not talk to her nicely and stuff. And then afterwards even feel like shit, because it's like, man, like, that's my person. Like, that's my favorite person. Like, well, why would I, you know what I mean? Why would I be acting like that? But then I realized, like, there is just some, you know what I mean, unconscious automated responses in reflections to trauma or in responses to traumas, but they can be circumvented through intention. Like, once you create that awareness around it, it's like, oh, this is why that's happening. Well, now you can get more intentional in circumventing it. And, like, it's not 100% with me and my dukes, but, like, we're 95. You know what I mean? We're running 90 to 95. Like, things are definitely a lot better. And that comes through intention. And that intention can only be instigated through the awareness. So, like, you got to make sure that you're aware of how you're treating your people, And you know what I mean, that may even come after the fact with that shitty feeling. It's like, oh my God, why did I say that to them? And it's like, you know what I mean? So, but you got to work on it. Like what, you just want to be a piece of shit and then walk away feeling like a piece of shit every time? No. Awareness, intention, correction. Hopefully I covered all of this and that you're doing everything you can to build strong relationships. And until next time, let's grow together.